The people attacking the church about its money are either ignorant of these facts or they just hate the church and they don't really care about the facts.
As a former right-wing Mormon myself, you'll see the sentiment championed from time to time whenever a whistleblower outs the church for its billions hidden in investment funds, and I've got to call it out. Mormons. All the name change can't erase the baptismal rates, and neither does being proud your church hoards billions of dollars.
They love to talk about the church hoarding money, but hoarding money for whom? Who is it that's benefiting from this money hoarding? The part these people leave out is that the main people who benefit from the church's money are members now and in the future in developing countries who consume billions and billions from the church in Salt Lake, but send nothing back to the church in Salt Lake.
Compare that to every other country in the world, and even if it were a two-line statement for every other country in the world, there would be no tithing received from every other country in the world, and multi-billions a year given to support the church and its procedures and the poor and its programs and its building and its upkeep throughout the world. This is a church that, although it's very wealthy, although it is involved in billions of dollars of income and expenditures in the commercial area, it is giving this money overwhelmingly for the benefit of the rank and file.
So who is benefiting from the church's large savings? The rank and file, especially those in developing nations. Sure, $1 billion may sound like an endless supply of money, but do they realize that $100 billion only adds up to about $6,000 per member of the church? Also, since when is having a significant savings account a bad idea? What if the church is putting away large amounts of money for possible future economic changes in order to support its global mission? What if growth in North America is declining while developing world growth rates are climbing? What is the financial impact of that? Perhaps having a large fund like this could be extremely wise. So you have a global church that is growing in places that do not have financial means and potentially shrinking in North America where all the funds are coming from that allow us to continue to spread the church internationally. And that is not even taking into account how quickly this fund could dry up in the face of significant economic recession or depression in the next 100 years.
If the tithing that U.S. members in particular pay without U.S. income of tithing by U.S. members of the church, the church could not maintain its programs for members of the church, which are now more than half of the total church membership. They just couldn't.
They couldn't do it without the
U.S. Not without tithing paid by members of the church
in
U.S. And if there were a severe depression and that declined, the reserve fund would be what would be supporting the church throughout the rest of the world.
Is a depression in the next 100 years possible in North America, given the U.S. levels of debt, spending, and inflation? Of course it is. But these critics are either ignorant or else they're deranged and just hate the church and think that anything the church does must be some kind of a selfish grift.
When you break down, the church is a business, right? And we know that. They've
acquire
created this
land,
MLM.
acquire money.
Yeah, and never-ending growth. There is no end to growth. There is no end to revenue, and everything's so corporatized, and we're all just sitting here trying, thinking that the investment is for eternal salvation, but really it's just to add an extra zero in some portfolio somewhere.
To lay up our treasures where moth and whatever doth corrupt.
Yeah.
Do people really think that President Nelson left his lucrative career as a world-renowned heart surgeon to make $120,000 a year in a job that you can never retire from, all while voluntarily paying church employees double what he gets as a living allowance? Is that really the behavior of someone who is in it for the money? And despite their receiving a living allowance, I still maintain that the church does not have a paid ministry. How can that be? Well, Do you realize how much secular work the brethren have to do? They manage massive real estate holdings, production facilities, financial and accounting operations, logistical operations, relief efforts, and are the heads of multiple major universities. How much do you think a manager of billions in real estate makes a year? How much do you think a university board member makes? How about an investment manager over billions in stocks and bonds? Let me tell you, it's a lot more than $120,000 a year, especially if you were doing all of those things at the same time. And if you think Zion and the kingdom of God in Mormonism should be a purely spiritual enterprise and should have nothing to do with these temporal things, you don't understand our history or our theology. Is it really unreasonable for general authorities of the church to receive a reasonable living allowance in exchange for them giving up their careers and retirements to take on these massive administrative and temporal responsibilities on top of their massive ministerial work? So here's the bottom line. People love to talk about all the money the church has been able to save, but they never talk about who is benefiting from it. Because anyone who implies that it's church leadership is either ignorant of the work of people like Michael Quinn, or else they just hate the church and they don't really care about the facts. But are there legitimate questions about the church's finances? For instance, why doesn't the church give more to charity? Or why is the church trying to keep all of its finances private? These actually are real questions, and I will address them in upcoming videos.